In this video, I'm going to show you guys how to make your own LED airlift panel. So quite a few years ago, before Next Level Neo was even a thing, I had my own show car, and it was all about building it out and trying to find ways to implement different addressable LEDs and things like that into the build. And one area that I wanted to focus on was the airlift controller itself. Always seems like a little bit of a dead zone in your trunk setup, you know? Many people use different ways to light up around the trunk layout, depending on what setup you have, hard lines, things like that. And I wanted to make something that could make your trunk setup pop and attract attention with minimal effort. And that's where these panels came into existence. And originally, I just did it with some strips and a bunch of soldering, and it kind of worked, but it was really janky, and there was definitely no way that I could like mass produce that and ship it to people. So I went to some manufacturers and worked on some designs, and that is where these panels came to be. So after years of selling them and trying to keep them somewhat exclusive to myself, it's just been something that people have been asking about over and over again, being able to get access to these panels, the controllers and everything. And honestly, with as much work as I have already, it just makes sense to go ahead and make kits available for everyone else and stop selling them myself. So from this day forward, Next Level Neo will not be selling these as complete panels, but we are going to be selling the kits so that you can make them yourself. Now there are two kits because there is two different size manifolds, so it's important that you know which size manifold you have. They are roughly 2" by 4 1/4 or 2 1/4 by 4 1/4 in size. The newer manifolds are larger, and I believe they came out around 21, 22. And it seems like everything now is the larger size. But it is important to know which size you have so that you make sure you order the proper kit. So this is a mostly complete kit, but it doesn't include everything, most notably the acrylic panels themselves. This video is going to focus on the kit and the assembly itself. I'm going to do a separate video that is going to go over basic design techniques that I've learned and used using things like Photoshop and the Glowforge cutter. Now your kit is going to come with a few different things. You're going to have your LED panel, and now this is specific to the size of your airlift manifold. So the LED panel is either going to be 5 rows or it's going to be 4 rows depending on the size. But there is a difference in this LED panel between the large and the small. We also include extended screws since the original screws are not going to quite be long enough to fit through both acrylic panels that you're going to have to use. For the controller, we went with a SP611E. And this controller seems to be pretty versatile and also cost effective, and that's why we went with this direction. You get a remote control for quick operation. There's also an application. You can control it via Bluetooth, and there are buttons on the back side. This controller also has music input, so if you're at a show or there's any live music in the area, the lights on the panel can actually react to that input. Overall, this seems to be the best controller for this kit, but it doesn't mean that you can't use something like a Blue Ghost or go a little bit more fancy if you want to. One important factor to consider on these panels, though, is the LED type. We went with the GS8208 LED, which is a 12-volt RGB addressable LED. Each LED is individually controllable. There's no inverters needed, so it can plug directly into a 12-volt source on the car, and it has double data redundancy. So in the event that an LED were to somehow burn out, the LED after that will still light up. So the combination of all those factors is why we went with this LED type. Now a big downside of that is the color order. These are BGR color order. That means blue, green, and red. So cross compatibility is going to be very limited. That's why I've actually had quite a few people in the past ask about integrating this with other strips into the car, and I think we're going to try to get these made into strips as well, and that way you can do that. But when it comes to the standard stuff that we have on the website, RGB and GRBW are the main focuses. So in the event we do bring these out, it will be very important to make note that the color order on these strips is not cross-compatible with most of the other stuff on our website. Once again, we went with them because they do have a little bit of a higher reliability, and they are 12 volt, as well as that double data redundancy that just made it a really good option for these at the time. I've sold hundreds of these kits over the years, and I've only ever had to replace one LED panel. They seem to hold up really well and take any kind of abuse that's thrown at them. Also included in the kit is a power adapter. Now, the point of this is to plug directly into the side of the controller and give you a on and off power switch. So depending on the application, this may come in really handy, but in general, I usually recommend running this to a dome light, so that way when the trunk is open on the car, it'll light up the panel, but it's very much going to be application specific. So in some cases, you may not have a dome light or something to tap into. This switch is a great way to disconnect that power so these LEDs can't kill your battery when you're not actually using them. Now, at the creation of this video, there is one important difference between this kit and the smaller panel kit. This kit is pretty much plug and play. The plugs that come with them plug straight into the controller, makes life pretty easy, makes it easy to route the wires, and overall makes everything pretty easy to assemble. But if you get the smaller, older panel style, they were made with JST plugs on the panel themselves, so it is not going to plug directly into the controller as it's shipped. Now, we do include this adapter, which can replace the JST plug, and it will plug into the controller. But that is going to be 3 wires that you do have to solder in order to do that. Now, on the flip side, if you are trying to integrate it into another system or a different controller using the much more standard JST plug, this panel is actually going to work a lot better, and you won't even need the controller. But it's important that you factor that in when ordering this kit. If you're not comfortable soldering 3 wires, the small panel may not be the direction you want to go. Now, moving on to assembly, there's just a few things that you're going to want. I use this heat shield tape as a backing for the panel, so I like to have that. I use the Gorilla Glue contact adhesive to secure the plate together. It's easily removable in the event that somebody does want to change wire orientation between the top or the bottom of the panel, or if for some reason they want to change out their panel itself. This would enable a builder who is putting this together to just cut a new plate and send it out rather than having to create a whole new kit. And in the event that you do have the small panel, you're going to want a little bit of shrink tubing so that you can go ahead and change out that plug, assuming that you're using our SP611 controller. One other thing you're going to have to factor in is the power pigtail. While it does have a direct connection to the controller on one end, the other end is a same style barrel output. And generally the way that I do this is I cut this off, and there's just a red and black wire underneath, and you can just extend that out. And that finished product looks something like this, just using an 18 gauge wire. This makes running power a little bit easier, and you can customize the length of it to fit your needs. You will also need your acrylic work. Now, for the acrylic themselves, that is something that you will have to source or create, and I will have another video going into more detail on the actual creation techniques that I've learned. But for the purpose of this video, we're going to try to keep it short. I do use 2 different kinds of acrylic, both 1/8 inch each, and I will have a link for those in the description of this video. For the base plate that goes around the LED panel, I use a black acrylic. And for the top plate that will actually diffuse the LEDs, I use a 55% translucent acrylic. And once again, links for both of those in the description. For the panel itself, I generally pre-spray them with paint, let that cure for a few days or weeks, and then as I get orders for custom panels or I create batches of the Airlift performance design, I would just put that into the laser cutter and remove that paint using an etching setting on the laser cutter. And you have to play with your cutter a little bit because they are going to vary one to the next as far as what settings you're going to have to run to get good results. It's going to be a little bit of trial and error on that, but I'll make it a point in the design video to show you how I do it on my Glowforge to give you a baseline. I do have templates available for both of these with sizing information that should make it a little bit easier to get you started. As for assembly, it's pretty simple. I'll use the heat shielded tape, cut it to that 4 1/4 inch length. Then I'll just peel that backside to it and secure it to the backside of this panel. I drop in my LED board just like that, and then you can cut off any excess trim on the side. That way it looks nice and uniform. For the top panel, I'll generally take some Gorilla Glue contact adhesive, put a little bit in each of the 4 corners, and then put the panel directly on top. Now, do make note that you can run the wires out the top or the bottom simply by flipping the plate. So that's pretty much it. Let it dry for about a half hour, and then it's ready for install. Now, as for the 2 panels, One of them is larger than the other at about 2¼ versus 2 inch. The tape itself is 2 inches, so it will fit really well on the old style 2-inch panels, but on these you're gonna have to double up the tape. So I usually just run one strip across and then like a half a strip along the bottom, and that works pretty well. So it ends up looking something like that. As for the holes here, you do usually have to poke them through to make the screws go through, but that's not hard to do. And then once again, don't forget that in the event you are using the 2-inch panel and you want to use our SP611E, you're gonna have to cut this JST off and replace it with the included pigtail. I prefer to use a little bit of shrink tubing just to keep it nice and clean. Now, these kits are available on our website right now. There will be a link in the description of this video, as well as a link to our Amazon store where you can find everything else that you need, as well as a link on our Google Drive where you can find the templates for both the small and large back and front panels. Be sure to like and subscribe, and keep a lookout for our next video where we will be going over how I go about designing these panels in Photoshop. Thanks for watching, and as always, check out Next Level Neo for all of your LED lighting needs. Thanks.